at 580. I would say a commerce and shopper marketing agency, independent. So working heavily in really figuring out why you guys purchase what you purchase and getting you to purchase more of it. So definitely the focus. Yeah, I would say also, I'll just take a look even broader kind of at our agency. I would say we're leveraging it in a lot of different ways. I mean, I would say starting with you guys, we obviously do a lot on, especially I know someone mentioned earlier, like we don't do any pitches without using this data. Forget who it was, but I feel like
Yes.
we fit that mold as well. So we do a lot of it on that side of things. But we've also, being that we are, multifaceted in an agency with creative and strategy and other things as well, we've created other, custom creative tools, and we also use a lot of, I would say, the ChatGPTs of the world to create custom things for clients, where we'll have full, what we call brand mavens that are focused just on that brand with a whole custom dashboard. So I would say with that, from a strategy as well as just execution standpoint, definitely pretty active in the AI side of things. Yeah, I would say there's probably two ways that we've kind of leveraged it to do that. The first way is in the platforms that are, I would say, becoming more and more difficult to build the audiences that we're looking for. We lean pretty heavily on Resonate. Speaking to the Metas and some of the other social platforms of the world, especially where we sit, where purchase data and online behaviors and things of that nature are very important. Mm-hmm. Meta had all that data if you were to talk to us like 3 years ago, but they definitely don't anymore. So it's leveraging, some of the unique data sets that are available there to activate, and that's definitely something we do a lot of. And then I would say the other piece is also segmenting of the audiences. I would say previously, whether it was a programmatic buy or something else, you're building out just a general audience and you're building it out and going at it. What we've done with you guys, and especially I would say, I even got a recent thing from you guys, if you're going to expand upon from 5 to more audiences in the builder, but the ability to even segment out all of those different ones in real life, but then also push them to activate and get learnings and things of that nature has been super important. Like from our end, it may be one audience that's all demographics, another one that's all psychographics, a third one that's competitive purchasers, and maybe they're actual brand purchasers currently, and really being able to segment all that in one place and then push it to activation, build lookalikes, things of that nature has been huge for the media strategy side.
No, I
would say, speaking to the pitch and kind of what we talked about earlier, I think honestly the Resonate platform is super helpful in the fact that when we do pitch the audiences and pitch the insights that we have, we also speak to the fact that we can now take this audience and not only learn from it now, but learn from it long term as well. One thing we always speak to is the fact that we can activate directly against the audience that we're showing you in our pitch deck, but that also we can then gain learnings on if this is the right audience, if this is an audience we should be expanding upon, mm-hmm. what we should be changing, things of that nature. So I think that, and I'm going to be the cliche guy, I think that resonates with our clients, but I do think that that's a big thing, just because of the fact that that isn't something I would say clients always hear or have the ability to do. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely big. And then I would say kind of on the persona side, I spoke to it with the different opportunities and things of that nature. But it's also figuring out, and again, I mentioned earlier, we're heavy in kind of that commerce and shopper mindset. There's a lot that we do within the platform to look at online shopping behaviors, offline shopping, in-store shopping behaviors, even specific retailers, like at what retailers, where is there more of an online versus a in-store, like the Target and Walmart shopper are very different, but then how do we also look at that with a product or the category that, the shopper falls into? So, there's a number of different use cases I could speak to, but, that's kind of a broad range, I would say, of where we're using it to build it out. I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest thing for us has definitely been leveraging in those unique platforms. I know I was even grabbing Jay's ear in the hallway, trying to think of other unique platforms we could potentially push the data to. So definitely some other things that we're thinking about. But I would say that's definitely one of the key ones. I would say even though we are on the shopper side, we do have a couple of e-commerce brands that we even work with, one being even in the health space where we do use a lot of the data that you guys have access to, just because it's hard to find these unique audiences. So that's definitely, I would say, one area where we've done a lot. In terms of like performance and typically how we try to look at some of this stuff, it's definitely, at times, a lot of clients don't want to go all in and just be like, Resonate only, you guys are bringing us this new platform. Nothing against you guys, but they do want to see like how things have worked in other, historical data as well. And I would say probably 70 to 80, 90% of the time we see better success with the Resonate segments than we don't, especially when we're looking at things like, new customer acquisition or new visitors to website, things of that nature where we can really focus on it. So I would say those are probably the biggest use cases. And then from a media planning, I think the way the world has changed is we are always media planning. Like, unfortunately, I would say, like, I wish it was 15 years ago and it was a lot simpler than it is today. So one of the ways I would say Resonate, and this probably gets in a little bit more of the back-end analytics, but like the always media planning idea is like we do a lot of the, I would say less of the pixeling to verify our audience, more to pixel and learn about the people engaging with the media that we're doing. So with that, we've seen whole new channels that we're going to activate on. Like, I know recently, like when we built the persona, there wasn't really a whole lot around Pinterest, but then looking at who's engaging with the audience, there was a huge index against it. We've since then worked with the client to build out a channel, and we're now activating there. So there's little things like that that we'll also use in that always on media planning mindset. Yeah, I mean, creative is an interesting pathway here, and I would say it's something that in previous stops in working with you guys, I hadn't really had the creative team much involved, but one thing that's been super helpful for us is in working with our creative teams, not everything needs a full blown out strategy. And also with a lot of our clients, sometimes we don't have the time to build a strategy and work on creative at the same time. So typically those are parallel paths versus one waiting for the other, which, as I would say, being a media person can be frustrating because then you're backing into a creative message or you're backing into a strategy. One of the things that we've used, I would say, a lot recently that has almost maybe pre-optimized some of the stuff we're doing, both on the creative and media side, is using the Ray tool to, like, I'll go in, click all the things that I think are important, build out an audience, ship it to the creative team, and at least all of us are working off of the same general idea. I would love to say that it's like something we spend a ton of time on. It's typically not. It's typically just enough to get everybody started, but even having that starting point with everybody on the same page has helped a lot. So I would say that's definitely one of them. And then again, just from like a insights perspective and performance, I touched on the Pinterest thing, but there's other things that we'll look into as well of how we should be optimizing our media spend between channels, whether it should be heavier in the social space, whether it should be heavier in the programmatic space. I know one of the things that's always funny to me is even looking at all your out-of-home insights and how people remember out-of-home and which people actually take actions after it. Like, all of those little things seem crazy, but when you can go to a client and actually back it up with some of the data, it definitely helps maybe move something that you were hoping to do across the finish line. So a lot of that stuff and a lot of those insights are things we get from those engaged audiences. Because if you can show a client, like, this is who's actually engaging with your site and your ads, and this is what they're doing, it's a lot easier to push that messaging through. Yeah, with our creative team, we usually call some of these things called like go projects. It's usually like everybody's working on at the same time, and it's not usually ideal for an agency, but we've all been there, and I would say the tools definitely helped a ton.
That's great.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit earlier. I think it's definitely probably more where we would focus is probably a little bit more on the finding new ones. I would say it could be the littlest things. Like, one of the things we do heavily on the retail side is working with all of the marketplaces and all of the new retail media and all of that side of things. It's taking some of the data that we have to learn where these people are shopping, where they could be shopping, where we should be moving dollars based off of the number of people shopping at each one of these different locations, things of that nature. So there's a lot that we can do on that end to kind of build, but it also can be unique things like going to a client and telling them that the audience they thought they were trying to reach is maybe not the audience we need to be engaging with, or maybe the age is a little different than we thought it was up front. So I would say there's a number of different examples, but those are probably some of the key ones that we're leveraging for. Yeah, I would say from our end, the audience building is definitely there, and I would say the campaign optimization, I feel like, has kind of always been a thing. I feel like we went from machine learning to AI, and companies just rebranded everything that was machine learning to AI, so it hasn't really changed too much. But I would say for me, the two areas are probably more on the front end and back end in the quickness of that. So like whether it's on the front end with something like you guys built with Story Canvas to take the insights and get them in a spot to actually present quicker and get in front of clients is probably, I think, those next iterations, and that's where we're using different things like the ChatGPTs and all the customization on that side as well. But I think the other end is on the reporting side. There's a ton of these AI tools now for analytics to see all the analytics, but I think the next realm is really now telling you what to do with it and actually giving you the analysis so that you can very quickly go. And there's some of that being done, so I don't want to say it's not, but it's probably not where it could be. So I think there's probably a little bit more that we can do there to take that to the next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've even talked about it, and I see it on all the bags even in here. I think that the need for a human element, I think there's obviously a focus of AI and the growth and everything that's happening right now. And I would say I myself even had a hard time probably getting to the point where I truly understood AI and what it could do and how it can help us. So it's making sure you're using it, but also still using that human element. You don't want to use it for copywriting and send it to a client when it's very obvious that it's computer generated and little things like that. But I think those are all learnings everybody's going to have over time. But I think it's just making sure there is still that human element in everything.